for fatal strike on Poland, and there's Rishi and Trudeau there in matching shirts. The Daily Express with tragic death of boy from mould shames Britain. And finally, the Daily Star has Humpy Grumpy desert storm, bellowing camels at Three Lions Hotel to keep stars awake at night, and Putin bombs NATO, relegated to the sidebar. Those were your front pages. So, Leo, we start with the Times, their front page, which, as I say, balances the Russian strike on Poland with the picture there from the premiers of our country and Canada in a slightly odd...
Yeah, there's a bromance between Justin Trudeau and Rishi Sunak. I mean, I think that's today's big news story. But yeah, I love seeing the face of Justin Trudeau when he's resisting the urge to black up. That's a delight to see. But
which would be appropriate because they do look like they're auditioning for a mariachi band.
Yeah, they look like there's close harmony between them.
Absolutely.
They just need the basso profundo in their way.
I'm ashamed and embarrassed.
Well, I think that's encouraging. We mentioned it yesterday. Although I don't like either of them, I do think it's probably quite good for the country that they are getting along, that they sort of, they just seem to have a certain amount of rapport, which I can't imagine some of our previous prime ministers
Does Canada matter? It's hardly one of them. Maybe in 200 years.
Forum, isn't it?
Maybe in 200 years when it's thawed out because of global warming. Right now, I don't care. It's basically Wales. But no, Wales is a wonderful place.
With an H or without an H. You could do either way, that, isn't it? Yeah, but anyway, it's the Wales of America. Yeah, go on.
But yeah, the other story, Russians have been blamed for a fatal strike on Poland, which is NATO territory. So two people were killed by this apparent Russian missile landing in Poland, and obviously Poland is a member of NATO, so under NATO's Article 5, an attack on one member is an attack on all and triggers retaliation. And, previously we've seen America, which is a NATO member as well, saying that, if there are any sort of hits on NATO countries, they would basically just completely destroy Russia's standing army, which they've got the capability to do.
But not without retaliation, of course. Otherwise, they probably would have just done that anyway.
No, I don't think there's much retaliation possible from... I mean, Russia's supposed to have this big nuclear arsenal. I don't reckon those missiles still work. It's been like 30 years since they're built.
Your opinion of Canada.
Depends on how lucky you're feeling, of course, on any particular
we're
day.
in a basement. I mean, what's the worst?
I like the way you say that America are a member of NATO as well. I mean, in much the same way.
An insignificant junior member.
A member of the Kremlin. Go on, Roger.
Well, no one's suggesting that this is deliberate, of course, are they? And that's the key thing. I'm sure it'll all be glossed over.
They hit a farm. I mean, I'm not...
And it's 5 miles inside
sort of minimising
the
the tragedy of the people who were involved.
It's also equally possible that it's a Ukrainian air defence missile that's gone wrong. Apparently the debris suggests that it might be. And Russia, interestingly, has called it a provocation. I mean,
they're saying it's a false flag, yeah. But Russia always comes out with nonsense like that because... They're completely immoral.
To be fair, that is exactly how World War II started.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be the first false flag operation that's operated just within the border of Poland.
Probably the same bloody farm, isn't it?
Knowing their luck.
And to be honest, I mean, Ukrainian tractors have been doing a lot of damage to the Russian army by stealing their tanks. Yeah. There's been all this footage of Ukrainian tractors dragging Russian vehicles out of mud.
So you're saying there's a little bit of poetic justice.
So yeah, maybe they're like, well, we need to go after the tractors now. We've been rubbish against the army, but we're going to go after the tractors.
Downgraded their ambitions. Just before we move on to the next newspaper, life-saving cancer plan will slash waiting times for scans. I don't know if you looked at this, but it seems a bit dubious to me. It's not speeding up access to the directly to the equipment you need. It's simply eliminating a stage of...
It's an administrative...
Absolutely, it's a process, isn't it? They're just jumping ahead of... basically, GPs are referring patients, as far as I understand it, for scans.
For scans directly, which is great, and I'm sure that will be helpful. But does it not imply that they are then going to collide with people who've been waiting 12 weeks and were now due their scan? Unless these scanning facilities have literally been standing idle, which I'd be surprised.
I don't think they are. So, yeah, this is just going to create well, it's not going to create a backlog. The backlog's already there.
It's going to create a bottleneck or a choke point anyway, but I don't, maybe it will work. And how I became more wag. Thank you.
They need to get rid of the woman who will only take calls in the NHS reception, the doctor's reception, between 8 a.m. and 8:01 a.m.
Yeah.
Like that is. I mean, if I ever get a serious illness, I can't get up that early.
You literally need an app, don't you now, that will sort of like the one you can get onto eBay. Get the
Glastonbury
last thing
tickets.
in, you know. Yeah. Anyway, we move on to the Guardian's front page. Roger, you have that.
The Guardian, which is still going, and once again they lead with the Russian barrage striking Ukraine and attempting to wipe out, as far as we could see, attempting to completely dismantle the Ukrainian, the national grid, the system of electrical or electricity supply.
In a way, it's been slightly ironic and perhaps not helpful that that's been overshadowed by this accidental strike on Poland, when in fact there's been like the most intense barrage.
And it is a significant escalation and arguably a war crime if these things matter in such a mucky old business.
Well, it shows the desperation of Russia that they're not even trying to attack the army. They're going for civilian infrastructure.
They're going for the civilian infrastructure.
To try and create
absolutely.
sort of dissent. I think they think they can freeze the Ukrainians into submission, but it's obviously not going to work.
There is a suggestion, though, that this is like their swan song in a sense, because they're so low on munitions. You know, this could be one of the last days, one of the last acts.
Yeah.
Because apparently they're so low on supply, and being an international pariah, they're genuinely struggling, apparently, to rearm and to re-equip.
Yeah, even we've stopped selling missiles to them, so that's a bad thing. But yeah, the missile that landed in Poland was a surface-to-air missile that could have been repurposed as some sort of ballistic missile.
Yeah, this is why it might be a Ukrainian one, but apparently it's essentially a ground-to-air missile, which might have been crudely repurposed by the Russians.
It often ends up that... I remember at the end of the Second World War reading this, that you remember the V2 rockets, which were terrifying, even though the Nazis were spiralling downwards to inevitable
Massive
defeat. They were still,
effect.
Yeah. They were being towed onto their launch pads by mules. They had so little fuel left.
Right.
I mean, one of the main Nazi war objectives, of course, was to get to the oil fields and so on. Yeah. Anyway, and then we have this very sad story about a young lad who has died from a respiratory disease, as I understand it, which...
Horrendous story this is a child who, according to the coroner's conclusion, was killed, let's not beat about the bush, by prolonged exposure to mould, which was not addressed by by the Housing Association, which it should have been.
Have you? I mean, have you ever lived? I've lived in houses with mould. I was never aware that it was potentially lethal, but I do remember a lot of student houses.
Depends on how bad it was, of course,
and maybe how young you are,
and how young and vulnerable.
And how close you are possibly to where
it
maybe
was a
at
feature
ground
of
level.
Student life when I was a student, certainly. But
I mean, I used to have a joke about we were so poor, the only pet I was allowed was mould, and it was like, I'm still not entirely clear. But it feels like it shouldn't be something that a family should be exposed.
Well, also, there's an extraordinary mea culpa statement from Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary. And he acknowledges that it should not have happened and that the government had been too slow to toughen regulation on social housing. There's a real gear change, isn't there? A real sense that the government is I mean, it's a little bit hair-shirted, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there is this keenness for the government, led by Michael Gove as much as by anyone, to fess up to its shortcomings over the last few years.
Yeah. Well,
and again, that they are now a new government making new efforts.
They don't want to appear to be like Russia at this point, just like firing off their final salvos.
Grenfell really changed, their approach to this.
So. Yeah.
It's 5 years since the Grenfell tragedy. We should have been legislating earlier.
And just one flippant story at the top there: size zero and why its comeback won't work. I haven't read the story, but presumably because
Guardian readers say it won't work. That's why.
Because they're all fat. That's why. Obviously, Guardian readers don't want it to come back. Oh no! I've spent my whole life like telling myself it's okay to be a fat goblin. Like you sit here stuffing my face. Oh, healthy at any size. I'm body beautiful. Imagine, you're fat when you get described as brave and beautiful in the Guardian.
I understand where you're coming from, but I always felt size zero wasn't like playing into conventional male tastes either. It seemed always to be, to me, to enable dress designers
chic almost, wasn't it?
Well, it's largely dresses are designed by gay men, and size zero and reproduces the male paradigm, doesn't it?
Yeah,
slender hips,
the adolescent boy. Yes, definitely.
But I doubt they'll go there. Leo, you've got the Mirror.
The Mirror, so yeah, they say, as you say, they say Russian bombs hit Poland, and as you point out, it's not a bomb. A bomb is dropped from a plane.
Yeah.
This is a missile. And it's a big difference because obviously a plane is more intentional.
What about the COVID-bereaved flying a banner over Matt Hancock's head?
So yeah, so this protest, this is, you should go to Turkey and get a hair transplant.
You'll be able to afford Someone was telling me about that the other day.
I got one.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to try and sell one to you.
Someone was showing me their hair transplant, which had cost them $2,000 in Turkey.
Right, I got one cheaper than that.
$2,000 a year, though, right? Isn't it? Something like that?
What, is it rent a year?
Yeah,
well,
they fall out, don't
payment.
No, they don't fall out.
Are they not?
Yeah. Well,
they're tied in below the scalp.
Supposedly it's permanent.
That's what you've got to like. When the bulldog clip at the back pops off.
It's got a little bit and tighten it up.
I do recommend.
What do you think tonight? I might go quite short and spiky.
Like Play-Doh. The Play-Doh. But,
okay.
Yeah, so this isn't what the story's about.
No.
Although they've got a picture of Wills there as well looking, but I don't know why these rich, bald people don't get hair transplants. But
because we'd know, wouldn't we? It's too late for
Putin would probably not have felt the need to recombine his empire with Ukraine. Look,
if he had hair.
We have to go to a break now, lads, because we're on a new regime tonight. That's it for the front pages. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. With woke aeroplanes, woke university courses, and something called Buttfast tonic wine. I assure you, I'm completely unfamiliar with it. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to part 2 of Headliner. Sorry, we're just laughing at my adventures with Botox. I am Simon Evans, and I still have Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse with me. And now, and New Paper Speak, we're going to go behind the fold. I didn't know that. But anyway, Roger, according to Wednesday's Guardian, we have no idea how much of a problem fraud is in this country. So maybe no problem at all.
This is the unsurprising report that the Home Office, which is not been fit for purpose for decades, is working with out-of-date data, according to the National Audit Office. And they have no idea about the extent of fraud and the cost to the economy and indeed to individuals.
So just to be clear, this is fraud in the wide world, not within the Home Office. This is fraud.
This is fraud in the wider world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
the absolute crime of fraud.
Which apparently its most recent estimate which is actually from 2015, 2016, so it's 6 years
Pre-Brexit.
old.
Wow.
Absolutely. Supposedly, fraud then cost individuals 4.7 billion.
I thought you were going to say four shillings and threepence, but that's kind of quite a long way back.
4.7 billion is it's an astonishing figure. I mean, we all struggle with billions as concepts, don't we? But that's a phenomenal amount.
It's a lot for fraud, but it depends whether it's, you know, the old Pareto principle. You know, it's always like there's a few big ones that are soaking up most of that. I bet 3 billion of that will be a handful of frauds that were just astonishingly
I don't think
successful.
there's that many billionaires who are falling victim to like a Nigerian banking scam.
That's the visible end of the whole thing, isn't it? I don't know what these things are, honestly. I mean, as a comedian, you're not really susceptible to fraud. Sometimes somebody goes, oh, it's fine, it's a lovely gig, and you get there and it isn't. That's about as bad as it gets, isn't it? You know?
Well, it's interesting to see how banks are tackling it as well. I had this conversation earlier in the week with someone who was complaining that they can't make a purchase over £200 without their bank stepping in and them having to verify it. And that's obviously banks attempting to deal with the issue. I wish
they would impose that on my wife. What do you... what's your experience of fraud? Have you had any, like...
Not that I know of, but then, you know, unless you're keeping an eye on your account, you know, little amounts could... Because I think a lot of it is there's skimming on credit cards and things like that. So
fraud is the renewing subscription, isn't it, a lot of the time?
Well, Amazon Prime. It's like about 3 times a year I discover I've got an Amazon Prime subscription.
I find that good value, Amazon Prime. I get a delivery almost every day. I get my money's worth out of that, plus a few TV shows. But it's subscriptions to Substacks or whatever, you know, the one like a journalist to set up his own private.
That, of course, isn't criminal fraud.
But it's not actually fraud, as you say.
But it bleeds us all dry.
I've got a Patreon, and I've noticed a lot of people are just very passive members. They never look at the stuff I'm posting.
Exactly. Until you post one. OK, let's have a look at this story in Wednesday's Times now. It looks like our national football team are flying into Qatar in the gayest plane they could find.
Yes, they're flying in on Virgin Atlantic's Rainbow plane, which is the company's symbol of LGBTQ plus pride, for the World Cup. And the FA party didn't ask to fly in this particular plane, but were understood to be happy to do so. I mean, they couldn't really be like, you know, no, get me a straight plane. You know, like, that wouldn't be a good look in 2022.
But we have criticised them, or at least sort of like beard stroked a little bit, haven't we, over whether or not they're going to be hypocrites.
That's exactly what I'm going to do now.
Go on.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, he's going to wear Harry Kane, the England captain, is going to wear the One Love armband. And interestingly, FIFA's president urged him and other participating nations to let football take centre stage and not hand out moral lessons to the rest of the world. I mean, where's he been for the last 2 years? That's all football does anymore, isn't it? Did he even kick a ball?
It is against regulations. Now, I don't really imagine that FIFA are going to prosecute, but actually wearing any emblem, the poppy, for instance, or an armband such as that.
Or taking the knee for BLM.
And you have to say, I mean...
a lot of questions, does it not? Because they spent the last 2 years taking the knee, but of course Black Lives Matter, but apparently the brown ones don't, in terms of the migrant workers who died constructing the stadia. If every match ball contained the scooped-out skull of a migrant worker, then perhaps, you know...
Oh, I thought you were going to give us an actual statistic there, but that's not... We're
talking about hundreds, but it's disgusting. They're going to be taking the knee. They're going to be wearing rainbow flags. But why not boycott Qatar?
Like, because they're too venal, of course. They're too geared to
they cannot.
It wouldn't be held in Qatar.
You cannot expect the players. I don't believe you can expect the players in their peak of their fitness. They get a World Cup once every 4 years. You can't put it all in their lap. It was FIFA who should never have cut the deal. But what we have, and it's not unusual in the world, is it? You have ridiculous polarisation. So you have footballers with their virtue signalling rainbow laces and everything, which is slightly nauseating to an older generation. And then you have FIFA, who are behaving like absolute lizards. And, you can if they could just move a couple of yards closer to the centre line, both of them, then football would be centre.
What's great is the Qatar World Cup looks like it's going to be a complete shambles. So I've seen footage of the fans' accommodation, and it makes the Fire Festival look well organised. It's beautiful.
It's going to be a spectacle. I'm not sure exactly how you decolonise algebra. You've got this one, Roger, is that right?
Oh, crikey, yes.
But apparently everything's got to go woke.
I genuinely have no understanding. This is the Daily Mail taking a pop them young pesky wokesters.
Well, they're not that young. I had a look at the Quality Assurance Agency. They are a bunch of middle-aged and overwhelmingly white academics. I had a look at
absolutely. These are the four. These are the beard-tugging Guardian readers who apparently act in an advisory capacity. This is an officially recognised organisation, but they don't have authority within education. But they have insisted that all subjects, including the sciences and maths, are decolonised. My understanding of decolonisation is frankly too limited to really understand what that would involve.
I mean, it is a really odd word that's been selected. I think it has started with decolonise. The curriculum was a literature type of it, and the point was that too many books were just written by dead white males.
Yes.
And that's you can discuss that, obviously, yeah. And then it became, they went, and do you know what? Now we take a look at it, most of math seems to have come out of ancient Greece as well, and then a burst of excitement.
And is therefore Western and therefore racist. Yeah,
exactly. And then there are other ways of looking at the world. Well, I mean, there is non-Euclidean geometry, by all means come up with it. But, you can't elevate it just on the basis of it having had a different country.
Well, I read an interesting suggestion that the very idea of Western rational thought being something which we should be rowing back on is intrinsically racist in that it suggests that the rest of the world struggles with rational thought. You can see that, of course. And maths has historically come from China, the Arab world. It's been a collective enterprise.
Absolutely. All the words like algebra and algorithm, these are all coming out of Islam in the 12th century or whatever, when they had a sort of burst of speed. And,
so to suggest that it is from the West and imposed upon the rest of the world is,
it is the objectivity of the sciences which is the most likely to get us out of the current squabbles, isn't it? I would have thought.
Yeah, and also you can't remove that objectivity. You can't make 2 + 2 = 5 because that's what somebody says in Papua New Guinea. It's an absolute nonsense. Some of the things they're saying in here. Students should be taught that economics is still a predominantly white, male and Western field. I mean, there are some Zimbabwean economists. If you'd rather take lessons from them, see how that works out for you.
There has been one female, maybe two now, but I mean, there has been a fairly recent, it's not exactly a Nobel Prize, but Amartya Sen, who's an Indian, highly elevated, is at Trinity, Cambridge, and but, highly respected. They're not excluded if they get involved. There's no sort of bar. There's not a colour bar. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
there is a completely diverse international elite, is there not, who are Oxbridge educated, of course, Harvard, the Ivy League, these international people who you meet occasionally, who've been all over the world, and they literally are from all colours, all creeds, and all...
Obviously the Daily Mail are making hay with it, but I do tend to think these people should find some useful work to do. So, on to your homeland now in Wednesday's Telegraph, Leo, and it looks like minimum unit pricing has played right into the cupped hands of the monks of Buckfast Abbey, which I'm delighted to see. I love that.
That's right. Well, I mean, it might be a lovely abbey full of lovely monks, but they sell a tonic wine that is destroying Scotland. So Buckfast
is such a wonderful word, isn't it?
Basically, I mean, you're supposed to have like a little capful if you're 75.
Stimulates the appetite.
Get the blood flowing in the extremities. But no, Scottish teenagers like to drink about 3 bottles and then run about smashing stuff up and getting in fights and getting pregnant. But Buckfast sales are soaring in Scotland as Nicola Sturgeon's alcohol unit pricing has backfired. So the year following the introduction of the minimum price of 50p per unit, for the sales of fortified wines surged by nearly a fifth. And most of that, or an overrepresentation of that, was Buckfast. So it wasn't affected. The price of it became more economically... There's more parity between it and previously cheap drinks like cider. But this is not just Buckfast that is surging. Also, illegal drugs are surging in Scotland. And Scotland's got...
For the same reason, perhaps.
For the same reason, because they're becoming cheaper in comparison to cheap alcohol.
I remember I've been in pubs in West London where I observed, genuinely, it was easier to get a wrap of cocaine than it was to get to the bar. I mean, sometimes these things can work, in a very I did not take advantage of that.
You just knew about it. I believe
the great thing with Buckfast as well, because its unit per unit of alcohol, its price per unit of alcohol is quite high compared to cheap cider or whatever, but you also get like an absurd amount of caffeine in that as well.
Yes,
Caffeine,
absolutely,
it's taurine,
caffeine.
it's caffeine and taurine and all these other chemicals that are in it. Nobody's really sure what's in it. The monks put their magic in it. But it makes people really energised. When they've drunk enough alcohol that they should be lying down on a park bench and sleeping, they're still running about causing problems. And that's why
when
Buckfast...
Red Bull and vodka first hit the culture of
and
England
the Jaeger
London.
bombs as well.
And Jaeger bombs similarly.
Always
And the Alco Pops, of course, had caffeine in, which previously alcoholic drinks have not.
Jack and Coke. It's all the same attempt, but Buckfast is the original.
The original, that's
And
right.
it's banned in so many Scottish towns. It's banned where I grew up.
I believe it's banned in Devon.
They just like
straight into a pipeline up to Cumbernauld.
It's like Colombia banning cocaine.
Now we have time for one more before the break. Staying north of the border in The Guardian, Roger, someone's choice of scarf has somehow become national news. Please make
it turns out that wearing politically significant colours is technically banned in the Scottish Parliament, and some woman had turned up in the colours of the suffragette movement, which are
100 years old.
Purple, very pretty colours, but apparently these colours had also been adopted by trans-critical...
gender-critical, they call
Gender-critical.
Yeah.
Feminists used to call them.
Women.
Mature, sensible women who, of course, have been campaigning about the introduction of the
self-ID, isn't it?
Self-identification laws in Scotland, and it was at such a hearing, and consequently the colours were deemed significant. Whether or not the lady was innocently wearing those colours, I have no idea.
Oh, I'm sure they weren't innocent. I'm sure she wore them, but I still think she's entitled to wear them.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and they say, the scarf was political. It's like, you're in a political building.
Yeah.
Only if there's a place for politics, it's in a parliament.
And
well, you don't want people waving flags and what have you, do you?
All their lanyards hang in that building. She took photographs from rainbow stripe.
Yes, which is a politically significant gesture.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
It is very much one rule for them. Anyway, that's it for part 2. Join us in part 3 for lazy French people. Imagine that category. Sexy French mascots and STD-ridden pensioners. Well, I hope that's not all the same story. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. Let's get right back to it with Leo Kearse, Roger Monkhouse. Our first story, Leo, is from Wednesday's Metro, and finally some manly news.
Yes, so
snipers.
Ukraine, I mean, I'm sure women can be snipers too, but Ukraine has claimed that one of its snipers shot a Russian soldier from 1.7 miles away in what could be the second longest combat kill ever recorded. I believe we have footage of the Russian soldier's head exploding like a pumpkin.
No,
we don't. Okay, but this is, apparently it's like shooting someone in Westminster Bridge from the top of Battersea Power Station, although if you did that, the police would arrest you.
That would be considered like a warp.
Yeah, that would be terrorism. It's nothing like that. This was in a war zone.
And also, I bet the wind is howling a bit more over those 1.7 miles. And I suppose if you shoot straight down the line of the
and that's the skill of being a sniper taking into effect. You know, at that distance, the Earth's gravitational pull, the corona, all that sort of stuff.
But not clearly imagining an old Lee Enfield rifle or something.
Yeah,
and
no,
this is a
6'5"
monster, apparently.
Yeah, Snipex
the rifle or the sniper.
This is Snipex Alligator.
That's his name.
It's 6'5" tall. The lethal weapon is taller than most soldiers and is capable of blowing an enemy target to pieces. We're not talking about a bullet.
Wow. So this is like, it's almost it's not got an explosive in the bullet.
I don't think so, no.
But that is
clearly
huge,
a pretty enormous shell. Yeah.
And it'll shoot a massive, probably like a 50mm bullet.
So accuracy is perhaps less at a premium, consequently.
But what do the sites do? Was the site correct, do you think, for all that? I mean,
they have a spotter who helps them, you know, measure all
when you're doing curling.
Yeah. It's
like
really
sweeping ahead.
It's really technical now. So yeah. But yeah, there's still the world record still stands.
Yeah.
A Canadian sniper took out somebody at an Iraqi wedding from a distance of 11,300 feet. No, it wasn't a wedding.
11,000. No, that was an ISIS joke.
No one really got that.
It was just
was that true? But no, good joke.
I wonder if he was
hard hitting, but evidently it had the ring of plausibility. Sent it under the radar for us all.
You would hope, though, I would like to imagine that the world record holder was like, at some heartwarming story growing up in the backwoods and sniping moose from an early age.
Killing the neighbourhood cats. Something like that.
OK, Roger, we have the Daily Mail now, and... well, playing to stereotypes ever so slightly, but it appears the French have got into the habit of travailler chez nous.
The French and the Mail have a lot of fun over this, as you would expect, but the French apparently just haven't come back from furlough. That's what's happened. The nation is mired in a laziness epidemic since the COVID lockdown and one of the world's most generous furlough schemes, because apparently in France you got between 70 and 100% on furlough, and the uptake was enormous, and people just haven't come back. The figure, in 1990, around 60% of French people said work was very important to them. That figure has now sunk to 21%.
Wow.
Which is an enormous decline over 30 years.
Freud would have something to say about that.
Absolutely. But, now, this is my angle on this. This is actually just a mirror of exactly what's happening here. We have massive labour shortages, and people have taken themselves out of the workforce over the last 3-4 years. I think we now have the workforce has shrunk by, is it 400,000? Wow. That's more or less, that's a city. You know, and of course, when you take that out of the economy, then suddenly you're in recession. There's no surprises there.
Not just out of the economy, but the working from home thing as well. An enormous. I was in the city today, the Square Mile, just like wandering around and saw someone for lunch, and it's a very different place now. Still,
yes, it is.
You know, it's very much quieter. Kind of like it, you know, and it feels functional. And I mean, I dare say, if these banks were losing money hand over fist, they would rally the troops. You know, they wouldn't allow it to carry on.
Some people are genuinely working from home, but some people are deciding to correct their work-life balance and working in semi-retirement, perhaps smart time.
And also, we've got a benefit system that's easy to game. You can, you know, get yourself diagnosed.
So many people are on long-term sickness benefit. You wouldn't believe it now, and it's massively. This isn't me ranting like some old
Frenchie.
Some old reactionary. The statistics is there. You know, over the last few years, more and more people have signed. Now, this might have something to do with the NHS waiting lists. It might have something arguably to do with long COVID. All sorts of factors, of course, are in play. But certainly, we are dishing out benefits to hundreds of thousands more people now than we were a few years ago. Massive cost to the exchequer.
One other thing as well.
Workforce as well.
One other thing is that I don't know if it's changed in the last 12 months, but traditionally for many years, French productivity per worker considerably higher than British.
Yes.
And we still don't really know why, but something like 18% higher. If they're the only ones between us and America, and with America it's quite clear they have virtually no holidays, and they have a much more work ethic. Yeah.
They try hard.
Well,
but
is that
more
not,
than Germany even, you know.
Is that not our addiction to cheap immigrant labour, which is broadly speaking undocumented, whereas in France, of course, you can't easily employ cheap immigrant labour because of identity cards, etc. It's the documentation issue, is it not?
It might be. I'd be impressed if you'd managed to solve that imponderable that has been dragging us through the mud for the last 30 years. Sticking with the French now, in Wednesday's Guardian, Leo, it seems Paris has a new Olympic mascot, but I can't seem to find it.
Yeah, so... I was really hoping to do that joke as well.
It's the only joke we all have.
The Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games mascots have been likened to clitorises in trainers.
Yeah.
So do they even exist? That's what I want to know.
Clitorises in trainers.
Well, but apparently they're supposed to.
That's why they're not allowed into gentlemen's clubs.
well, they are now. It's 2022. Identify as whatever they want. But they're supposed to be the shape of Phrygian caps, so they're the floppy conical hats associated with the French Revolution. But yeah, they look like...
What? They're the sort of tricorn...
They don't look anything like clitoris.
No.
That's the first time I've seen
they don't,
hats.
do they?
Yeah.
They don't. They really
It's got eyes on it. Who's ever seen a clitoris with eyes on it?
It's...
That's absurd.
Certainly not a smiling one.
They look like samosas, I would say.
Yes, yes, they do.
Yeah.
Or some, like a
strawberry samosa.
A section
of...
breakfast
samosa.
A section of your liver.
Melted M&Ms.
I remember, though, when... do you remember Wenlock and... What were they called?
Oh, yeah.
The ones for the 2012 Olympics.
Mascots are always underwhelming and contentious, aren't they?
Yeah. Get useful work, part 36. The Times now. And Roger, when you helped your mum put a new app on her phone, you probably didn't think it'd end in the clap, did you? But there we are.
Gonorrhea is on the rise as over 65s swipe right.
Gonorrhea, you said.
Gonorrhea specifically, but they're also, obviously, all of them, all the STIs apparently are massively on the rise in the over 65s. Is this so surprising? This is the generation that invented promiscuity, isn't it, really? You know, and also, given how relatively youthful and vital and healthy they are, and the free availability of Viagra and cheap Viagra substitutes.
You're probably right there, actually. Well, I mean, joking aside, that I'm sure has had a huge...
Because, I mean, you don't need a prescription, you just go online. I'd take it to stop myself falling out of bed.
To keep the sheets off on a hot night. You look like you were thinking about that. What do you think, Leo? Do you find this disgusting, the idea of old people with STDs?
Yeah, it is kind of disgusting. And it's, you know, it's sad to see this generation is so degenerate. And I think, you know, maybe we could solve the housing crisis by seizing their property and banishing them to...
But you see, they had, you know, Stephen Stills, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. You know, that was their theme tune. We have Ed Sheeran. They say we have, but this generation, you know, they're not going to be like that.
This generation, weirdly, they're sort of split into two camps. So one camp is just not having sex. There's a lot of asexual people who've sort of claimed asexuality as a thing. It's got its own flag and stuff. Even though, you know, when have asexuals ever been persecuted? Like, there's dads out there who are like, listen, when you're under my roof, you can have sex with someone. But, you know, but also the other part of, you know, Generation Z or whatever is called Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah. In Britain, it's going to be Generation Z, but
Generation Izzard. That's what Izzard used to be. Did you know that? It was,
really?
It was the name for that letter. Yeah.
Oh,
in
right.
Old English. Yeah.
Oh no,
I only learned that quite recently from Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Izzard. Yeah.
And quite
so
appropriate, given
Izzard.
that you know, Izzard is quite a member of that generation, if not by age. But yet, polyamorousness is a huge thing. And before I met my wife, when I was dating, you know, all the girls would be like, "Are you?" They call it something ethically non-monogamous. They call it that. In my day, it was just called being a tart, you know. But like now, it's called ethically non-monogamous.
And they have you heard this word polycule? It's the most when you know it's essentially a loose connection of interchangeable sexual partners who all know about each other and are not jealous. Polycule, C-U-L-E. There's something about it. I don't know.
Sounds like something that can be popped.
Yeah, well, it sounds like something
you see the doctor about.
Yeah. It's an industrial cucumber frame, isn't it, or something? I mean, it's like just something. It's something it is for incubating disease. Anyway, let's finish this section, Leo, with Wednesday's Telegraph answering the question that everyone on the plane has asked: who is going to survive?
Right, so, they've done studies to find out what the safest seat on a plane is. Yeah. And apparently the least popular seat might be the safest. Some people used to think that the seats over the wing are the best because the plane's strongest there. Yeah. It's not. Actually, the rear of the aircraft is the safest place to be. And obviously because planes don't often reverse into mountains.
Absolutely. No. It's obvious. It seems incredibly obvious,
I think the safest place would be with the pilot, right? Wouldn't it? No, because they come and they were going to steer it up at the last minute.
Well, so you can wake them up and be like, no, no.
What about the lav? How many people die on the lav? Is that,
you can wrap yourself in tissue paper.
When I was in Indonesia in about 1990, just like thumbing around and backpacking, I found quite early on they have a sort of local flight from island to island. They're very affordable, like buses almost, very small planes. And if you ask nicely, they're really happy to let you sit up front with the pilots. They'd have a little fold-down seat that would go between them. And an English tourist they found quite charming, and they would practice their English on you.
From Guernsey to Jersey on a Trilander. And of course, they're tiny planes. There was a lady pilot, bit of perspex, like you're in an Uber or something, and then maybe 8 passengers, and it was fantastic.
I love all that.
It was like riding on the DLR, pretending to drive. It was
from Rawalpindi, I think it's called, in Islamabad, like northern Pakistan, into properly northern Pakistan, where the mountains are. Gilmet or something like, I can't remember the name of the place. Anyway, they fly in Dakotas, DC-3s. Oh, wow. And they're like about 50 years old, and their ceiling is lower than the peaks of the mountains. So they have to fly through the valleys. It's like being in Where Eagles Dare. Oh, my God. Oh, dear, that's done it for me. I'm not going to be able to concentrate. I'm back again. Those were romantic days. That's it for part 3. Join us for the final part where everything goes wrong. Today we've got the death of pocket money, the death of sperm, and the unlikely survival of a marathon runner. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
And welcome back to the final part of Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. I'm taking you through Wednesday's stories with Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. So let's go out with a bang. Roger, Wednesday's Daily Mail. If your children are getting stressed out about learning to read, for instance, help them chill out with some new books.
Once again, the Daily Mail splendidly leading the crusade against wokefulness, exposes the scandal of the publishing boom of mindfulness books for kiddies. A whole new genre on personal development, self-esteem and mental health for children. I mean, this is... It's an industry that takes hold in the corporate body like a tumour, and it's a disgusting. Children are incredibly suggestible. Any parent knows that. And if you ask them if they're feeling sad, then they'll say, yes, I'm feeling sad, and then you reward them with more attention, which every child, of course, desires, and it becomes a spiral. And then you get more and more consultants and more institutionalised children who are rewarded for being sad. And it's so clearly, I think, counterproductive.
It's not quite the same thing, but I will just mention it. My son, who's a bit older, he's 15, had a thing yesterday at school where they talk about sort of mental health and sexual education, all this kind of stuff. And apparently they had a woman there who was trying to persuade the young men in the class that any inclination they had to go to the gym and try and put on muscle and monitor their diet amounted to anorexia. It was just as, you know, they're trying to pathologise what I regard as probably the single healthiest instinct that he has.
And looking at school kids these days, I reckon they need a bit more anorexia. Eating disorders, we've thrown the bathwater out with a baby. We need a bit of that.
Bullying.
Bullying. Well, we can see what's happened with the end of bullying. 20 years of bullying being banned in schools. Look at this generation. They need to be punched in the face.
The definition of bullying has changed completely, evidently. Now it's a sharp word, and once upon a time, we used to shove each other's heads down the toilet if we respected and liked them. You know?
That's right. Anyway, there are some books. I will just say, there are some nice books. There are nice books that teach you, that make children feel a bit warm and kind of hugged. I mean, there are some good books like that. I remember, like, Winnie the Pooh, whatever, you know, it felt like it was, there was a sort of little, like a subconscious, like a little
charming
bit of a current
and wonderful, life-affirming book
in
which
friendship.
Serious themes are dealt with in a very positive way.
Exactly, instead of a load of pseudo-Cod-Freudian nonsense.
Mindfulness.
Wringing their hands and being overly concerned.
Books called Little Big Feelings. I mean, come on. Like, don't have feelings.
OK, we're all going to need a stiff drink at this rate. The Daily Star now, Leo. Apparently money is being replaced with treats. So do a good job on this one. I'll give you a back rub after.
Pocket money could soon be a thing of the past as parents opt to reward their kids in other ways. So the vast majority of parents, according to this study, are turning to alternative payments such as extra screen time on devices and in-game purchases, according to new research by Sky Mobile. How surprising. Apparently a lot of parents are rewarding their children with Sky Mobile contracts and apps and mobile phone time. Absolute nonsense. This is Sky Mobile, like, lying to us to try and sell more mobile phones.
Once again, it's a press release being used quite innocently, presumably, by journalists. It's so lazy. It's so lazy.
Let me do an impression of a journalist in 2022.
Copy and paste.
Cut, paste. You know what I mean?
They've got Louise Redknapp on it. I mean, how much more of a thoroughgoing academic authority?
I'm going to get a Pulitzer Prize for that, Louise.
I hugely regret the demise of money, though, and of course the innumeracy of children is also a profound ongoing problem. And pocket money is a wonderful way to discover how to use money to physically take it away from your source, from your well, and to discover the cost and consequences of spending quickly or spending slowly. It's such a shame.
It takes a long time to learn that lesson, doesn't it, as well? I remember my mum, before, I used to get pocket money, but it was a fairly small amount. But what I really remember, she definitely tried to teach me that lesson by buying me my own packet of biscuits once a week so that I wouldn't have to go to the kitchen for the general biscuits. And I would, you know, and it was Thursday I got my packet of biscuits, and I had a half moon shaped tin to keep them in, whatever they would be, and they never survived Thursday. Not a single biscuit.
And to this day, Thursday is still biscuit day in Evan's household.
It was an utterly futile attempt. Anyway, Wednesday's Daily Mail, what are scientists wailing about sperm?
Oh, wow. Spermageddon. Men's sperm rates have more than halved since the 1970s. Mine have, certainly. As experts warn, the trend could threaten mankind's survival. There's all sorts of lifestyle factors, of course. Obesity counts, particularly, are a factor. But then, and this is quite sinister because it affects all the species, of course, you've also got environmental pollution, the everywhere chemicals, which apparently have a significant effect upon all of nature. We know, of course, there's a lot of estrogen in the water cycle. Yeah. I've got breasts because of the pill. And we inhale and absorb these chemicals constantly, which threaten our long-term survival as a species. It's terrifying.
I read a book, I sort of skimmed a book, I have the book, which was written by a proper American scientist, and it begins with, which I did read the whole chapter, terrifyingly, they were scooping alligators out of the swamps in Florida, and that most of them, their genitals were too deformed and weird and shrunken to even function.
To use in porn.
Yeah. Alligator porn. I don't think even the Floridans eat that, but it was all the same thing, this kind of idea that there's obviously something getting... And nobody really knows what it is, right? Well, it seems to be like loads... There is a guy I follow on Twitter who his job is training personal trainers, so he creates training programs that they can buy and stuff. And he did a thing where he said, right, I'm going to eliminate all of the estrogens, the things that essentially lower testosterone from your diet. And he made a list of about 30, and he went for about a fortnight without any plastic packaging, any tap water, any cling film, all of these things.
How did he get water?
Well, he used a very expensive filter, apparently. You know, he had to create the... And because your standard...
Oh, right, of course, because microplastics are in everything.
Yeah, and it was so hard. He said, there's no way you could sustain this. But his testosterone... And this is a fit, healthy guy with muscles and lean. Lean. To be lean is the best defence you have against it.
But we could replace it with steroids. Presumably, if we all got steroids. But I think there's social factors as well. Everybody reading The Guardian, there's no bullying, like men aren't encouraged to participate in some combative sports and things anymore.
No punch up at the end of the night out.
We have to rush through our last couple of stories here, gentlemen. Sticking with the Mail, this story is sure to be some relief to your exes. Leo, this is about the body count.
Yeah, so having multiple sexual partners does not affect your marriage chances in the long term, study finds, because everybody is afraid of dying alone. So eventually somebody will take you. Yes. But it also says men with deep voices are more likely to attract a partner, but are also more likely to cheat on their partner, according to this recent study.
Which ties in with testosterone as well, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So testosterone gives you a deep voice.
Yeah, yes. And you can handle your drink as well. It's cruel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is a test that men have traditionally used on one another. Can you handle your drink? Right. It actually does.
And being drunk, I understand, raises your testosterone levels as well for men and women. This is why everyone gets a bit feisty.
Yeah.
I thought it lowered your testosterone level.
Well, you
one or the other.
Me on that, then, can you? I might have just made that up without authority.
Who's got some butt fast to test it?
Let's finish with the Metro now, Roger. This is a new sports fad, which we have now.
Oh, well done, this fella, yes. A man has completed a marathon in 3.5 hours whilst chain-smoking cigarettes.
That is impressive.
It's
3.5 hours
achievement.
Isn't impressive at all.
Genuinely. I mean, going into space, all of these major achievements are dwarfed. Chen, aged 50, completed...
Oh, look at him. There's a picture of him. He looks cool. He even has it just in his mouth.
Oh, yes, he is,
That is cool. I'm sorry,
he's 50
kids,
as well.
Is cool.
He's 50. He's no spring chicken.
But is he properly smoking it, or is it just hanging out of his mouth?
That's a good question.
Well, that's all we have time for, folks. Thank you to my guests, Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. That was a lot of fun. Headliners will be back tomorrow at 11, but for now it's time for the Farage replay. Good night.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of the European